Quick visual tidbits. Buffalo Soldiers, the soldiers on wheels. Did you know that Buffalo Soldiers, the legendary African American soldiers in U.S. military history, once had a bicycle corps? In 1896, the United States decided to test a new combat unit of bicycle-mounted troops. The 20 soldiers who took part in the trial run were members of the 25th Infantry Regiment of Fort Missoula, Montana. This experiment was the brainchild of White Officer Lieutenant James A. Moss. He suggested it to Major General Nelson Miles, who agreed and placed Moss in command. This test run was also carried out to see if bicycles could replace horses because, unlike horses, bicycles did not need food, water, or rest. The image on the left is the coat of arms of the 25th Infantry Regiment. Buffalo Soldiers of the 25th Infantry, some wearing buffalo robes, Fort Keogh, Montana, 1890. The Bicycle Corps was made up of 22 members. Besides Lieutenant Moss and Dr. James M. Kennedy, the Corps included 1 sergeant, 2 corporals, 1 trumpeter, and 16 privates. Accompanying them was reporter Edward Booz from the Daily Missoulian. Of the 20 volunteer soldiers, only 5 knew how to ride. The others learned a week before setting off on a nearly 2,000-mile journey from Missoula to St. Louis, Missouri. First Sergeant Mingo Sanders, who was from Marion, South Carolina, was not only the most experienced of the Buffalo Soldiers, but also the oldest at 39 years old. Sanders already had 16 years in the military when he joined the Bicycle Corps. His career in the Army almost ended 14 years in, when he was left partially blind in one eye due to an accident with an exploding soda bottle. He was able to re-enlist after his commanding officer intervened on his behalf. As historian Anthony Powell pointed out, Lieutenant Moss handled the logistics of where the Bicycle Corps went, but it was Sergeant Sanders who took care of the actual operations, deciding how the rides would work. It was also Sanders who kept the morale of the Corps high. The men rode specially made military bicycles donated by the Spaulding Company. Each one-speed bicycle weighed 59 pounds and could be considered the James Bond gadget of its day. Each had gear cases, luggage carriers, brakes, and frame cases. As the online bicycle museum explained, the cooking utensils consist of 3 telescopic frame cases made of light sheet iron and 2 tin coffee pots. By means of thumb screws, the metallic cases are secured in the diamond of the bicycles and are used as ration carriers during the day. When camp is made, the rations are taken out, and, each case being made of 2 separate parts, we had 6 cooking vessels. The coffee pots are cylindrical in shape, measuring 18 inches in length and 10 inches in diameter. They are strapped to the handlebars on the front of the bicycle, and a blanket roll is carried in each. Besides the 59-pound bicycle, each soldier carried an additional 55 pounds in supplies. The supplies were stored in white rolls tied to the handlebars, as well as leather pouches attached to the frame of the bike. The men stopped every 100 miles to refill their supplies. The soldiers also had their weapons. Each carried a 10-pound Craig Jorgensen rifle slung across his back, plus a belt with 50 rounds of ammunition. One soldier had a shotgun. The soldiers were expected to cover, on average, 50 miles per day. The route the Buffalo Soldiers traveled was chosen because it had the most diverse terrain and allowed the military to see how the men and bicycles would hold up on steep slopes, on dry sandy roads, over snow, on rocks, and while crossing rivers. They also had to take this route because the regular roads were damaged by wagon wheels that had created deep rutted paths. The roads could be washed away with any rainfall. The men crossed rivers while holding their bikes above their heads to avoid getting them wet. The soldiers even rode on train tracks. When approaching a town, they formed two columns and pedaled side by side. This is the bicycle corps crossing a creek. John Finley was the bicycle corps' mechanic and its best rider. His bicycle was heavier than the others because it was fitted with a large metal toolbox. To fix a bicycle that had a punctured tire or breakdown, Finley would switch bikes with the rider. While the others carried on, he stayed behind to repair the bike and caught up to the corps later. Even when the soldiers made camp, Finley would work late into the night fixing a bicycle, taking it apart, and putting it back together again. It goes without saying that his skills made him a very valuable member of the Corps. Before the military, Finley had worked for 4 years for Imperial Bicycle Works in Chicago. This is artist Frederick Remington's impressions of the black soldiers during the Yellowstone excursion. It is heavy wheeling and pretty bumpy on the grass where they are compelled to ride, but they manage far better than one would anticipate. The physique of the black soldiers must be admired. Great-chested, broad-shouldered, upstanding fellows with bull necks, as with their rifles thrown along their packs, they straddle along. Besides the terrain, the bicycle corps had to face heat, cold, and a water shortage. The water sources that were available to them were contaminated, making many of them ill. Despite this and other hardships, the men covered 1,900 miles and reached St. Louis after 41 days. On June 14, 1897, Lieutenant James Moss, U.S. Army, led the bicycle corps of the 25th Infantry from Fort Missoula, Montana, up a wagon trail and Native American path to St. Louis, Missouri, arriving July 16, 1897. Although they were met by cheering crowds, officials' interest in using bicycles in warfare had faded. 9 months after their historic ride, the 25th Infantry was deployed to Cuba to fight in the Spanish-American War. For E.I. Marcia, now you've been tidbitted.